Kitco Mining special coverage of PDAC is brought to you by Gold Mining, Uranium Energy Corps, and Uranium Royalty Corps.
Hello and welcome to Kitco Mining with me, Paul Harris, here at the 2025 Prospectors and Developers Association Conference in Toronto in Canada. Today we are talking about growth and acquisition with the mining sector's fastest growing company, in a first for me and for Kitco Mining. And joining me is Shaoyang Shen, Deputy President of Zijin Mining. Shaoyang, welcome to Kitco.
Thank you, Paul, for having me here, particularly during PDAC.
It's a pleasure to have you. I've wanted to interview you for a long time. Zijin is growing to be one of the world's most important and proactive mining companies. It is a top 5 mining company. You produced 1 million tons of copper last year and 2.4 million ounces of gold. You've been the fastest growing mining company over the past 5 years, and you now have a market capitalization of about $60 billion US. Congratulations there. And you've not stopping there. You've got a 5-year growth plan through which you will increase your copper production to 1.5 million tons per year and your gold output to 3.2 million ounces by 2028, in addition to lithium and some other things. An amazing growth story for a company which began 32 years ago, I believe, as a single gold mine. What has been the company's strategy that has driven such big growth?
Again, thank you for all your comments, and apparently Zijin's story is a successful one, but also a result of international cooperation. Zijin developed our own core competitiveness from operation perspective, from starting with exploration perspective, from operational management perspective, from project construction perspective, and apparently also from technological innovation and adoption of latest technology, that kind of perspective. But to reach where we are, apparently there's another very important element, that is international cooperation. As you all know that now we have become one of the largest international companies with global presence. But let me start with our stated goal. Our stated goal is to become a green, high-tech, leading global company. So now you have 3 key words over here. Number 1, green, technology, and global. When we talk about being green, only one hand, we are talking about we as a company to operate responsibly. So we are talking about making sure that we use non-fossil source of energy as much as practical possible. So based on our goal, by 2030, we should be using more than 30% of our energy from renewable sources. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is apparently we have entered into the new energy transition era. We are talking about EVs, we are talking about electrification of many sectors in the business, to some extent also in our life. And then you will need critical minerals like copper, like lithium. And you just said we have become one of the largest copper producer in the world. So we believe during this process, we can be making significant amount of contribution. At the same time, this opportunity this process also provides a lot of growth opportunity for the company.
I'd just like to talk about the growth. You've been actively investing in Africa, you've been actively investing in the Americas. We've talked about how you're planning to grow gold production, copper production, lithium. Is your mandate, is your mission to go and source minerals to supply the world, or are you focused on supplying your home market, your domestic market?
We are a global company in the sense that we operate pretty much in almost all continents. That's one aspect. So at the same time, we are also a global supplier. We don't limit ourselves to a particular market. The goal is really to get out of the best values out of our operations, out of marketing processes. So our preferences is really to sell our products wherever there's a demand, wherever there's a cost saving, so that we can really deliver the best value for our shareholders. That's really our purpose.
Okay. Now, I attended your cocktail reception last night. Thank you very much for the invitation. I learned a lot, so I picked up some statistics I didn't know. You said that you're the gold company that produces the most copper. You're also the copper company that produces the most gold. And I think you said that you now make more money from copper than from gold, which is quite a recent phenomenon. When you sort of look at the world out there and you're strategizing, you're planning your strategy, how are you factoring in what's happening in the gold sector, what's happening in the copper sector? How do you set your plans?
So I said that yesterday that we believe we are very well positioned in that now we have a future-facing and diversified portfolio. So on the one hand, now we have become one of the most important industrial metals producer, including copper and zinc, and now increasing will be lithium. At the same time, we are also continue with the growth of our copper production. So our gold production. So we are in a situation where we can really withstand any kind of potential macroeconomic uncertainty. And we are more resilient. Because when you talk about industrial metals, they are more likely being impacted by industrial uses, by macroeconomics. When you're talking about precious metals, particularly like gold, they can be used as, safe haven asset. And when you have the geopolitics challenges, when you have other investment needs, and we do have some, investors or some users, they will choose to go for gold assets. So we believe that we have a relative balanced and sustainable strategy in terms of our metals portfolio.
Well, that makes a lot of sense because gold, precious metals are a hedge against the volatility in the base metals. Let's talk a little bit more about your gold assets. You recently bought Newmont's Akem Gold Mine in Ghana for about $1 billion. What are your growth plans in the gold sector?
We are going to be growing steadily. So last year, we produced 2.4 million ounces, as you have pointed out. And we are targeting producing 3.2 million ounces by year 2028. So the annual growth rate is going to be around 7 to 8%, which is still very rapid compared with other senior gold producers, but apparently not going to be as fast growing as what we did in the past 1 decade, given the current size we are also having. So we have the combination of this, if you like, pretty much twofold strategy. On the one hand, we will be growing primarily on our existing pipeline, organic growth, exploration, expansion of current operations. And at the same time, we are also looking for additional possible acquisition opportunities, other projects that people already are following in the marketplace. So we believe that we are going to be growing steadily.
What about your costs? The industry typically uses the all-in sustaining cost measure. 2.4 million ounces. What was your average all-in sustaining cost last year?
Yeah, I don't have the number in my head, but I believe that we, at the kind of lower cost percentile compared with our peers in the industrial, but areas vary in terms of cost. So for the copper, for gold, we operate in substantially more jurisdictions than we do in the copper space. So I believe that we have operations in 7 countries outside of China, including China, it will be 8. And compared with copper we have production mostly in only 3 countries, China, DRC, and Serbia.
Okay. Now, I want to follow up. You talked about one of the advantages of the company is its technical ability. You talked about organic growth, and I recall that the Gold Forum last year in Colorado Springs, you said you aim to increase your production from the Buritica gold mine in Colombia to about 300,000 ounces a year. I'm mentioning this because a long time ago I worked for Continental on Buritica when that was just getting going. And I live in Colombia, so I have an interest there. Obviously, you have a lot of challenges at Buritica from illegal mining operations. How are you going to be able to grow your production there while you have this, or do you have a strategy to be able to take back some of the areas from the illegal mining operators?
So Paul, I'm very happy to hear that you have personal connection with that particular mine, but you are correct that that mine operating there, has significant amount of challenge of its own, but it's not the only place that would face challenges. Look at our peers operating in other jurisdictions, in Western Africa, in some other South American countries. Most of the mines, not just gold mines, most of the mines have problems and challenges of its own, and we have to navigate through. So for us, it's very important that you are able to get support from the communities. If you have your community of your backing, you are in a better position to fend off those challenges, to navigate through the difficulties. I'm very happy to let you know that in Buritica, last year, we already achieved the milestone of 300,000 ounces. So when we were in Denver, that was back in September. So at that time that I was not in a position to announce the actual number, but we did that.
Congratulations.
Yeah. And we will continue, really managing the challenge. The mine itself has significant amount of potential. But we said, as you are aware, you are talking about illegal mining activities, and you have to navigate through those challenges. But very important that we have been making significant amount of contributions in terms of economic benefit sharing, in terms of social development. So we are having the backing of the communities. That is the strength that we will be relying on.
Okay, and you also produce lead and zinc there. You put a circuit in to recover those a couple of years ago. Now, as the company grows, one of the challenges mining companies face with having multiple assets, of course, is managing those and not letting costs get out of control. A number of companies fail or trip up or have challenges there because they have too many assets, costs get out of control. What's your strategy for managing multiple assets across multiple jurisdictions?
So I think that is not an easy question, but in summary, I believe it's about discipline. When we do the investment decision with regard to M&A, something that keeping in mind, most importantly, is really to create a shareholder value. No matter how much amount of metals you mine, if it doesn't produce or generates the kind of return on investment, it doesn't really make a lot of economic sense. And it comes back to operation management. We also keep in mind that we got to control CapEx and cost to a certain level, that we will be making the projects viable and making the kind of return of investment as well as profitability that we are looking at. So again, so each mine is unique in its way. So we are not substantially different from other peers in the industrial that are also facing the rising cost. But well, even though we have presence now in virtually almost all the continents outside of China, and we still have about 40-something% of our revenue, something percent of our metals production out of China. So in general, in China, mines are more productive, more efficient, and cost control are going to be a little bit differently in that the country can provide all the supplies, and the workforce is well trained and relatively cost effective. So outside of China, then you're talking about different parts of the world. We operate in Serbia, in European countries, Serbia with 2 major copper projects, and we also operate in 3 countries in Africa, and we operate also in a number of countries in South American countries. So each region is different. What you need is come up with the strategy that is going to be working for that particular strategy. You don't just come up with one solution and then you just really apply. Hopefully they can work in every single region and every single project. So you got to be very project specific.
Okay. Now, in terms of copper, as you mentioned, you have 3 copper mines. China is the world's biggest consumer of copper, and it drives the copper market. What are you seeing from the copper market in China for this year? Is it going to be a good year? Chinese consumers, are they buying copper this year?
So sorry that I mentioned that we have copper productions mostly from 3 countries.
3 countries, sorry.
Yeah, and each country has 2 or 3 major copper mines. And you talk about the demand. So apparently China is going to be so far the most important country in terms of market demand, because China consumes anywhere, I think, from 40-something to 50% of the world's total output, because copper really is about industrial uses. So now you have a situation where Chinese economy is slowing down. Apparently it's no longer growing double digit as it did more than 10 years ago. But it's still growing, and it's still the largest market. But in the past, the major sector that use a lot of copper really are from infrastructure, from real estate in particular, and or to some extent also from industrial manufacturing. So that sector, we believe the demand is slowing. But now, at the same time, as I mentioned at the very beginning, that we are entering into the new energy transition era. You're talking about EVs. You're talking about a lot of things that has something to do with electricity. And you will have to do with electricity, and then you will need copper as one of the very important elements. Right? So we see the demands more from that side, from new energy transition, what we call green industrial, that side. So in the end, that is about the balance of having supply and demand. And demand, I believe that some sectors are either decreasing or the growth has been slowing, but you do have other factors that are growing, in particularly this new energy transition related industry.
I'd like to ask you some more about that, because China is leading the world in many advanced technologies such as electric vehicles, automation, artificial intelligence, and others. What impact do you think those will have on copper demand in the future?
Yeah, I think they get a very good point in that. Let me just give you an example that I learned from my interactions with our peers in the automobile industry and battery manufacturing industry. I'm told that in a typical conventional vehicle, you use roughly 20 kilograms of copper, but in a EV, you need about 4 times the amount, about 80 kilos. So you just mentioned, for example, the EV, the industry apparently has substantially higher demand in terms of copper usage.
Okay. Now, technology is not just about EVs and automation, but technology is increasingly being used in the mining sector. What kind of technologies are coming around the corner for you that you're looking to deploy in your mines, in your exploration programs?
I like, the topic about technology, right? I said that, well, a lot of people think that mining is an old-fashioned industrial. We can do some things that are cool, right? So when Zijin started, we actually came out, successfully by deploying at the time some relatively advanced technology to deal with what they call refractory ore. That is some kind of processing technique. You need to treat low grade and hard to process the kind of ore. That was back to 30 years ago when Zijin started. So nowadays, apparently there are, more new forms of technology that is available. We are talking about uses of unmanned equipment. You are talking about increasingly automation. And you are also talking about 5G communications being used, actually being used in a lot of Zijin mines, even underground, so that, to enforce communication, and to some extent, then if you need to have the unmanned equipment, you got to have the kind of transmission, right? And then also that you also talk about drones, doing the survey, doing the exploration. And now increasingly, you're talking about AI applications. And that is really taking place in the industrial. So, there are a lot of things that can be used in the industrial for the purpose for improving productivity, improving efficiency, but not just that. More importantly, about safety. If you do not need to send people or send less, few people to do the underground work, and if there's unmanned equipment available, and coupled with, as I said, right, the 5G communication, this sort of technology, that's something that you want to choose to adopt.
Okay. I'd like to talk about some geopolitical aspects. I know it's sensitive, so bear with me. Last night you spoke a lot about how over the years Zijin has worked with a lot of Canadian companies. Zijin's bought a lot of Canadian companies and generated a lot of returns for Canadian investors. We are in a very particular geopolitical environment. The international order that the world has enjoyed for the past sort of 80 years is changing rapidly. You're traded on the Shanghai Stock Exchange and the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Are you contemplating potentially listing in Canada, the United States, or London, creating a more international profile for the company to perhaps better be able to face some of the geopolitical challenges?
So that's, the comment I made, the mining industry really needs international cooperation. It's not just about company like Zijin coming over to work with Canadian companies. Even Canadian companies, work in virtually all parts of the world. Canada needs international cooperation, as we do. So, the global mining company is really intertwined from region to region, country to country. because as I said, some country they have abundant amount of resources, but they don't necessarily have the capex they need. They don't necessarily have the kind of operational experiences or construction and technological capability. And now you have more advanced countries in China. They don't necessarily mine as much, but they use majority of the mineral metals. So it is very natural to cooperate. And Canada plays a very significant role in that. It's not really just about it has abundant amount of resources within the borders. Canada has a very influential, what I would call, mining ecosystem at global scale. So Canada was very instrumental in setting up a lot of mining-related standards, and apparently Canada has a big pool of talents. You have some of the best geologists, engineers, and mining-related advisors, like investment bankers, lawyers, and so Canada plays such an important role. More importantly, let's talk about Toronto Stock Exchange, because mining is a capital-intensive industry. Most of the projects would need hundreds of millions, if not in the billions of dollars of that kind of investment to get the project developed. So Toronto Stock Exchange plays a significant role. So you mentioned that Zijin has cooperated with a number of Canada-based companies, but we don't acquire any single piece of asset that is physically located in Canada, because a lot of Canadian companies, they have done phenomenal, great work doing exploration in other countries. But you just mentioned Pretica that you know very well, right? It was discovered by Canadian exploration companies, but in the end, it's really Zijin that get the construction finished. It's not just that one example, so many similar type of examples, right? So we are really able to have this mutually beneficial cooperation relationship with a lot of our Canadian counterparts.
It does seem quite a strange situation from some points of view, because the ability to raise money for mining and exploration in Canada is almost shrinking every day. China and Chinese companies are becoming an increasingly important source of finance for mine development. And so I imagine you must see a lot of opportunities out there, because your sort of competition, if you like, is reducing.
And well, let me come back to the second part of your question, really about, we are living in such an environment where there are really tensions, or there are really disagreements between countries. But in the end, particularly about mining, international cooperation need to continue. And my view, even last night's event, you can hear that a lot of people share the same view. It is really in Canada's best interest to have Canadian companies continue having access to fund it in need, particularly for those projects located outside of Canada, right? And also, to continue to have what I call the mining ecosystem to continue to function, and then Canada can continue to play a role that it can facilitate, investors, mining companies, and other stakeholders to see Canada as a global transaction platform, and with as little, non-market intervention as possible. So that's really my view, and I believe that if we can live in the ideal world I just described, it's going to be in the best interest for all the stakeholders.
I know there's a number of companies in Canada that share those views and those desires. Let's perhaps end on a more positive note. What are some of the key milestones this year for Zijin? What can we expect to see coming out of the company?
Well, we just released our 2025 guidance, I believe in mid-January, we are targeting producing 1.15 million tons of copper and 80-something tons of gold. I believe it is going to be around 2.7 million ounces of gold, and also about 440,000 tons of zinc. So these are three most important business segments for Zijin. And this year we are going to start producing sizable lithium out of projects under construction. So I believe we are going to be producing around 40,000 tons of lithium carbonate equivalent amount.
Well, I wish you the best of luck at that, and I look forward to sitting down with you again, perhaps later on this year at the Denver Gold Forum again.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Shaoyang Shen, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having this opportunity. Thank you.
And we have a lot more to come from the 2025 Prospectors and Developers Association Conference here in Toronto, in Canada. So hit that subscribe button. I'm Paul Harris, and this is Kitco Mining.
Kitco Mining special coverage of PDAC is brought to you by Gold Mining, Uranium Energy Corps, and Uranium Royalty Corps.